You will close more individuals on a sales call, asking them questions they have never been asked before, then playing it safe and asking the same old questions that everybody always asks because it will not allow your prospect to have clarity around where they are, how they got there, how much it sucks, and how much they don't want to be in that situation.
Welcome to the Millionaire Maker Show, a podcast helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses online to create more time, more money, more freedom, and more impact. Now, with over 20 years of business building, coaching, and consulting experience, here's your host, author, speaker, and creator of the Millionaire Maker Funnel, Lindsey Anderson.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Millionaire Maker Show. I am your host, Lindsey Anderson, and today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is sales. From prospect to client, how to master the art of gap selling. If you are selling high-ticket services, you're getting on those phone calls, and you want to improve your ability to close more high-ticket sales, this podcast episode is for you. I'm going to be walking you through the entire process that I take in my calls to clients sales script in order to host a prescriptive sales call, understand my clients' problems, and be able to prescribe them a program or service that will work effectively for them. You definitely don't want to miss this episode. And it's one of my favorite topics because sales, right? Like when you think about sales, growing up and in your community, salespeople, they get a bad rap. And so it's most people's general inclination that they don't want to be a salesperson. You know, I go and ask my 7-year-old, I say, what do you think about salespeople? And he will say, they lie to you and they're dishonest. They're just trying to take your money. And that's because it's all around us. It's in the media. It's the way our parents talked about salespeople. It's our very own experience with salespeople. And so then when we want to go and sell high ticket offers to people, we have to adopt this label of salesperson, and we don't want that label because, ew, nobody wants to be a salesperson. And that's the first thing that I want to talk about at the top of today's episode, looking at your beliefs around being a salesperson, because take my word for it. I've been in business for over 20 years. The first decade in business, I ran from sales. When I finally changed my perspective on sales and I decided I have to be good at sales, I want to be good at sales, and I chose that I was good with being a good salesperson, I would do what those good salespeople would do, business became a lot easier. You no longer have to be running after clients, wondering where your next customers are going to come from. You no longer have to wonder if what you're selling is actually a good thing right now or if things have changed because you're constantly on the phone with your ideal client. You hear directly from them what their problems are, what their objections are, what they're saying about it. And there is nothing more useful in an online business than to take that information directly from your end client, turning it around, using it to create a product that they need, not just a product that you think that they need, but actually creating a high quality product and being able to market this product to your end user based on the words that they're saying to you. And so there's numerous reasons why you want to be a good salesperson, I would say, out of anything in your business. And this trumps marketing, which is my first love. I have a digital marketing agency that is the #1 agency for experts, coaches, and consultants to scale their business. Trust me, I know a thing or two about digital marketing and I love it. But I would still say after all of that, okay, most people end up hiding behind marketing because they're afraid of sales. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of these labels. And if you get anything out of this show today, it's when you adopt and you're okay with, I want to be a salesperson. I'm not going to allow my personality to say I'm not just the sales type, because you get to choose who you are. When you choose to be a good salesperson, everything in your business will change. You will be closer to your customers. Your marketing information will change. You'll make more sales. everything will go so much smoother. Not only that, but after you start growing to a million and beyond in your business, as the owner of the business, that becomes your main task. You are out there making sales. And it's a skill that can be learned. It's not something you want to do based on rapport. A lot of people that are attracted to me, a lot of people that are listening here in my audience, they are speakers, they are coaches, they are consultants, they're extremely charismatic. They're used to being able to charismatically get people to like them and trust them through charisma alone. But when it comes to exchanging dollars and it comes to paying you for your services, you need a strategy and you need a skill set. If you're only closing on rapport, you're leaving so much money on the table. Not only that, when you show up to sales calls and you don't have a plan and you're trying to close on rapport, it takes so much energy because you're trying to stay out ahead of your client. You're trying to stay out ahead of what is the next question I'm going to ask, and you lose the ability to actually listen to your customer, which is the name of the game when it comes to selling to the gap. And we're going to go into it all today. I'm going to go into my calls to client sales script. We're going to talk about this gap situation. And if you haven't learned how to sell to the gap, the art of gap selling, and you are selling high ticket programs and services, you do not want to miss this episode because we're going over the entire thing today. Before I hop into that, though, I want to make sure that you go to lindseyandderson.live and get signed up for my upcoming masterclass. If you want to get your hands around the strategies that I am sharing with you right here in this podcast, you want to join me on one of those virtual live events, all you need to do is go to lindseyandderson.live. My upcoming event is all about the authentic sales system. This is my entire sales system. Today we're covering the calls to client sales script. But if you want my entire sales system, make sure you go to lindseyandderson.live, get signed up, and I will see you at that live masterclass. So let's hop into the art of gap selling. So what is gap selling? It's as simple as understanding from your prospect when you're on the phone where they're at, what problems they are having right now, what their day-to-day life looks like right now, what they are dealing with right now, and a very crystal clear picture of that, and their future state, what they want their life to be like, what their life would be like if the major problem that they are having was solved, and what that looks like to them, why it's important to them, why it drives them, and why they are looking for a solution and how urgent it is for them to actually find a solution. When you have clarity on these two pieces of gap selling, you have the beginning where they are, you have the end where they want to be. Your product or service can fill in the gaps in the middle, and that becomes your pitch at the end where you understand their current state and their future state, and using your prospect's own words and own experience and the words that they have used and their very specific examples that you got from all of the questions you asked, and being able to successfully prescribe your services to what they say their problems are and where they want to be. One of the biggest mistakes salespeople can make is they have their product and services, they ask their prospect a myriad of questions, but then when it becomes time to actually pitch or share their solution, they end up just giving a pitch for their solution. Hey, here's my solution. It's content that converts. It's a 12-week program. It costs this. I'll help you with foundations. I'll help you with content. And I'll help you with the sales mechanism. And that's what it is. And you basically just offer that. But this is a real problem because if that prospect doesn't think that they have some of those problems or none of those are really that important to them, and you're not speaking to them using their own language, it's going to be pretty hard to close that sale because we are all only obsessed with whatever is going on right in front of us. We don't care about anything else. So it is essential, and that is the real art of gap selling, 2, put yourself in your customer's position, where they're at, and get a really solid understanding of that. Now, I'm going to give you a hot tip before we hop into how do we do that now that we know what gap selling is. And here's the hot tip. I highly recommend a couple of things as you set up your business to do gap selling. Number 1, always use a script. Now, I don't mean a word-for-word script. I'm saying write down the list of questions that you need to ask in order to know what your prospect's current state is and future state is. If you're trying to come up with that off the top of your head, I'm going to call that unprepared. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve them. So you want to write these questions down. What do you need to know in order to even know if your service is a good fit for your prospect? So you're going to write this down. I personally create a document for every single person that I have a call with, and I name it after the person who's on the call, and I use my questions, and literally, while I am on the phone with them, I am typing in the answers because I care about their answers. I want to document their answers. If we get on a call 3 months from now, I don't want them to have to repeat themselves. And so I really handle it so professionally, just like a doctor would, and I recommend you do the same. You show up with a script with these questions, and you're constantly iterating on these, okay? Maybe you have a prospect that answers a question in a really great way, and you're like, I always need to ask that question. That question is always solid gold based on the information that I need. And so you update your script. And it all falls into the iterative marketing and sales approach that I teach here on the Millionaire Maker Show. Okay. It's not like you're going to be with anything you do in your online business. It's not like you have 0 and then you have full success and you're done with it. No, you have to be okay with pretty much everything in your business taking an iterative approach. It's never going to be perfect. It's just going to be better every single time we iterate because everything is always changing. Business is incredibly complex, and this is a mindset that I really recommend that you get to know. Now, for one more hot tip before we hop into the calls to client script, and that is I always recommend to host your sales calls on the phone and not on Zoom. When you're on Zoom, you're too worried about what your hair looks like. You're worried about the signals they're picking up. You don't want to look down and be writing. There's way too many variables on a Zoom call that you do not want to manage. So I highly recommend you host all phone calls on the telephone. That allows you to only have voice. You don't care how you look or how you're coming across or your background, but you can really be present with the person on the other side of the phone. So those are my hot tips before we dive in. Use a script, number 1, and number 2, do these phone calls on the literal phone. So let's hop into the calls to client sales script. So the first step in this call, you really want to be able to understand your client's current state. Where are they now? What does that look like? How does that affect their life? Now, on this portion of the call, you really want to be diving in with deeper questions. If they answer one of your questions, you want to dive in with, can you tell me more about that? You want to come out of this phase really understanding their current solutions and limitations. What have you tried before? Can you tell me more about that? What other things have you tried in order to solve this problem? Tell me more, because throughout you understanding their current state, it is essential for you to really understand where they're coming from and how this problem is affecting them. Now, a really helpful portion of this can be getting down to the numbers of it. So if they say, I just waste all of my time every single day as a executive managing all of my employees. Don't allow the person on the other side of the phone to get away with, I waste so many hours in a day. It's going to be in your best interest to get some real hot analytics from this individual. How many hours specifically? What does that really look like in your day? Now, a lot of salespeople will back off because is what's going to happen in this phase. And as you dive deeper into these questions, understanding where they're at, a lot of people, okay, they get a little bit prickly. Your prospect is like, oh, why is she asking me all the hard questions? You're asking me about this problem that just it brings me so much pain. I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to talk how I got here because it's causing me pain. And I would say, as the person, the salesperson on the other side of the phone, it's a service to continue to ask them these deeper questions and for you to really understand where they're coming from. My best tip here is if you still have questions in the back of your head, oh, I really wonder if when they said that they used to run $1 million business, but now they're only making 500K, they don't really want to talk about it. I'm going to be asking the question, what was it? What happened between 2023 when you were making $1 million and 2024 when that came down to 500K? What happened there? Now, most people don't want to answer that question, but if someone is coming to me to seek my assistance on if I can actually help them grow, I have to know this answer. And I encourage you on your calls to listen to that little voice in your head, okay? Even if the prospect is acting like you should know, when they're saying like, you know what I mean? And you don't know what they mean, then you go ahead with that follow-up question. It's in your best interest to ask those follow-up questions. I'll tell you this, okay? You will close more individuals on a sales call, asking them questions they have never been asked before, then playing it safe and asking the same old questions that everybody always asks because it will not allow your prospect to have clarity around where they are, how they got there, how much it sucks, and how much they don't want to be in that situation. Phase 2 is exploring the future state. Okay, you have all these problems. We dug into your wounds here and it totally sucks. Let's look at your future state. What do you want that to be? How quickly are you moving? How quickly do you want the future state to be here? Some of my favorite questions about understanding the future state is if we fast forward 6 months from now, Mr. Prospect, and you're still in this same situation, and then you describe the situation that they mentioned in the previous section using their words because you're sitting there making comments, okay? You're making comments on your script, the words they used. If you're still in this situation 6 months from now, how is that going to be? If you're only making 200K by the end of the year, how is that going to be for you? And they'll tell you, most people, okay, based on the first time you ask that, they're like, oh, they'll give you some high-level answer. And it is imperative that you ask these follow-up questions. Can you tell me more about that? I really want to build this business because I want to have $1 million business. That's what people can just say off the cuff without it being hard. But I would then turn around and say, okay, so you want to build $1 million business. Tell me more about that. I know what $1 million business represents to me. Tell me a little bit about what it represents to you. And this is where you can really get to the unseen problem. These things that they don't even really know themselves until it comes up and out through them and allows them to have clarity about what that actually means, what their future could actually hold if they have a solution to their obstacles. So I do a future state like this. If it's 6 months from now and things still suck, what is that going to be like? And then I fast forward again if it's 6 months from now and you have X, Y, and Z problem solved, taking again from their words used during the initial part of the phone call, what would that be like? And they will tell you that 6 months from now, if their problems are solved, that they'll have everything that they ever wanted. They'll have everything resolved and like what their life looks like, what their financial situation looks like, what their family, their health, wealth, and relationships situation will look like 6 months from now. And it allows them to put themselves into that position 6 months from now if it does work, 6 months from now if it doesn't work. Most people do not think like that. They think these big ideas that eventually this thing is going to be resolved. But if you narrow it down to a time frame like 6 months and you literally say, it is December of 2024 and you are still here, is that okay? Now, sometimes people will be like, yeah, that's fine. I'm dipping my toe in. But this is an essential question for you as the salesperson to ask because you understand what the urgency is. You understand how much you can offer and how important it is, okay, that you offer it and let them know that, hey, if you don't find help now, it's pretty bleak that you're going to have the kind of December that you just painted out in the answer before. Their current state, their future state, you want to be quantifying this gap all day long. How many hours is it taking you? How much money is that? Exactly how many times a day do you do XYZ? And again, they're going to get really annoyed with you, but it is for everyone's best interest to quantify the gap as much as possible because it's going to serve you when it comes time to actually offer your services and cover that gap. After you get their previous state and their future state, the next thing you're going to want to do is quantify the gap for them. You want to give them a nice summary about where you've been on the phone call. So you're going to say, okay, I've asked you a lot of questions. Now let me get this right, okay? This is where you currently are. And this over here is where you want to be. And you're parroting back to them these facts that they said to you. This is useful for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's active listening. People will feel listened to if you repeat back to them what they said using their own words. That's number one. Number two, it's really useful because it's clarifying. Maybe you got it wrong, okay? Communication isn't always 100%, so it's in your best interest to actually check back in with them that everything that you've written down and everything that you've documented here is accurate and you are reading the room correctly. And so when you get buy off on the gap, then it's time to actually present your solution. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, a lot of the times people will hop in and be like, here's my solution. It is a 3-month program. It is this and 12 video modules and this, and it will solve your problems and help you get to your future state. Shall we sign up? But instead, you want to be looking at their gap. You are an expert. You do know what it's going to take for them to get to point A to point B. You do not want to sugarcoat this for them. If they're trying to build $1 million business, I have to share with some people, like, that's not going to happen this year because you have XYZ gap that you have to fill. You have to figure out how to create a content generation lead machine. You need to figure out how to host a conversion event that will actually attract and convert high quality clients. And you need a sales process. You need to understand how to close sales. Those are 3 huge gaps. And in order to get you from where you are now, a $250K business full of chaos, to a fully functional online business that affords you more time, more money, more freedom, and more impact, and you want to be making $1 million and making 50 sales a month, you have quite a wide gap here. And just like a doctor would on a call like this, you share what their problems are and you do not hold back. So after you have quantified the gap and shared this with them, then it's really important that you then present your program not as in, hey, this is everybody's right fit and these are the 3 things that I cover and this is what we do. Instead, you want to be asking yourself questions like this. What do I think they think their biggest problem is? And there shouldn't be any thinking because you've asked all of these questions. You should know what they think their biggest problems are. And when it comes time to present your solution to them, then you are presenting the solution up against their problems. You're saying, you mentioned that you don't have a high quality lead source to generate more leads for your online business. My program is the perfect solution to that. You mentioned you don't know how to host an invite-only event or any kind of conversion event. My program is a solution to that. You don't have the ability to price or program or service a high volume amount of clients. My program is a solution for that. Now, my program also covers sales. And this is a really good example for you to hear is most people will think that they're a pretty good salesperson. And if I'm on a call and somebody is like, I'm a good salesperson, I don't need help with sales. No, I haven't picked up any sales skills, but pretty much you get me on the phone with the right fit client, I'm going to close those guys all day long. And even if in my head, I'm thinking, you've never been trained, you've never developed sales skills, there is no way you're closing everybody that you talk to. You're not tracking your stats. There is no way that is happening. But if they're telling me I'm a good salesperson, I am not going to try to really feature this portion of my program that will actually help them be a good salesperson. Because the second that I bring that up and I'm like, and my program also covers sales and it will help you through this sales process. Or if I get into a position where I'm trying to convince this person that they have a sales problem, you've absolutely lost your prospect at that point. Because here's what you need to know about sales is a prospect will only believe what comes out of their mouth. They will not believe anything that comes from you. And so when it gets to this critical part of the gap selling process, you really need to be presenting the solution in the perspective, in the light of what they said their problems are and how your solution can serve them and their specific problems to get to their specific future state. That's the real layout of gap selling. It's very powerful if you're selling high ticket. Really approaching your prospect in this way is the most powerful way to sell. When you do gap selling, your conversion rates are much higher because you're speaking to your client's problems. You have increased customer satisfaction because as you're talking to the end user and you're really listening, instead of thinking, I hope I get this sale, I'm not really comprehending what they're telling me here because I'm so nervous about this sales thing, but you're actually listening, then your customers are better because you understand what they want and you're able to serve them better. And you will find longer term business growth because running a business ultimately is about solving a problem, providing value by solving a problem. And if you don't know what those problems are, you're not speaking to those problems and using the words that your prospect is using to describe their problems, there's going to be a communication mismatch. So you really want to take the sales call seriously, really understand gap selling, and dive into this. It will change your business approaching prospects this way and handling calls in this manner. Now, one of the questions that I often get asked as I teach high ticket sales is, how do I handle objections? And it's exactly in the same manner as I mentioned before. You're going to be listening. Okay. They say, Lindsey, oh, that's really expensive. You're going to remain confident that your program or service can be a solution to their problem. Of course, only if it is, but you're going to confidently acknowledge and empathize with what they said. I hear what you're saying. You're saying it is a little bit expensive. And then one of my favorite things to say is, can you tell me more about that? And as you say, can you tell me more about that? You start really understanding what their problem is, because this is what you got to know about the good old-fashioned price objection is it's everyone's go-to. It's the easiest thing for people to say. Anytime they're on a call like this, they're going to pull out the old price objection, and it's your job as a high-quality gap salesperson to inquire more, find out what that really means. And when you do, you can address these concerns and be able to either shift their perspective, share some social proof, or give them alternatives to actually meet your prospect where they are at. So there you have it. There is the entire calls to clients sales script. That is how you take someone from being a prospect to a client, all through selling to the gap. I hope you enjoyed this episode. In order to continue to bring you really great episodes and to share with you the blunt, straightforward way of what it actually takes to build a successful online business, please subscribe. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, if the more you subscribe, the more we're able to bring you high quality guests, the more we're able to bring you these action-packed episodes that will help you build this online business and make a real legacy business that affords you more time, more money, more freedom, and more impact. So hit that subscribe. Make sure you go to lindseyandderson.live, sign up for my virtual live workshop series, and thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Cheers to you and your success.
Welcome to the Millionaire Maker Show, a podcast helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses online to create more time, more money, more freedom, and more impact. Now, with over 20 years of business building, coaching, and consulting experience, here's your host, author, speaker, and creator of the Millionaire Maker Funnel, Lindsey Anderson.